What's up, everyone? We've got another epic episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Show, and today we've got a very, very special guest. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi guys, this is Eva Lees. You can find me on Twitter as Eva Lees. I also stream on Twitch. I'm super excited to be on here. So, Faz, Sam, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming on. Obviously there are a couple of things that I wanted to kind of chat to you about. You mentioned that you've been streaming primarily. So is that sort of what primarily got you into Yu-Gi-Oh? Or like was it like when you were streaming, you were like, okay, I'm going to stream Yu-Gi-Oh? Or was it that you wanted to stream and then the Yu-Gi-Oh kind of came with it?
Yeah. So I, I honestly, before I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh, I like never went on Twitch. Like not even just like, oh, I just don't go on there often. Like never.
Okay.
And so I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh. So I played as a kid a bit. Like I had like structure deck. I had like my first deck that I built was like a Blackwing deck around like Edison format, but I had no idea what that was because I was just messing around playing with friends, um, or mostly playing by myself. But I didn't start playing competitively until about summer of 2021.
Okay.
So I started playing, I started going to locals, and um, essentially I, just kept playing, and I was like, you know what? I guess I want to bring. I started being on Twitter more, and I was like, well, I want to have another platform for this, so why don't I try streaming? Because I already had kind of recording things from musical endeavors and things like that, so streaming just kind of came with it.
Nice one. I've always because I don't know about you, Fabs, like because it's obviously you run the TYS channel. Like when we were in Sanctum Squad, streaming was always something that we talked about, but I don't know. Like I feel like for content creators, it's like you either go hard on streaming or you go hard on YouTube. So like, what was in your decision to kind of focus on streaming as opposed to creating YouTube videos like primarily and things like that? Because I've seen that you have done like a few YouTube videos, but primarily it seems to be the Twitch.
Yeah, so I did a couple YouTube videos. They were around when Duels from the Deep was coming out. It was like Marincest stuff. Um, and a little bit of it was like just that my editing skills weren't quite up to my own standards, and I was like overly critical of myself. And so when it came to streaming, there was about the same amount of prep that had to go into it, but I found that I was less critical because I wasn't going back and looking at how do I like how did I do in this section? Did I explain this well enough? Do I look okay? Do I sound okay? And with a stream, it's a little bit more of I have my prep, I go in, I do this, a couple hours stream. At the end of it, I can watch the VOD if I want to, but I can also just ignore that and just put out into the ether and, it's done. C'est acabó. So,
Do you find it like nerve-wracking doing streaming? Like, so for example, I feel like with a video, maybe it might be a bit easier because it's like it's on your own time and stuff. But when you have to go onto a stream and basically like perform live, do you find that nerve-wracking? To do.
so it's easier for me streaming because it is like that live performance. When I'm doing music, I find myself more stressed out during recording sessions because you get into that perfectionist mindset of everything having to be just pristine. But when you're streaming or doing a live performance, you're like, oh, kind of messed that up, but we're already past it. We're on the next verse, so oh well.
Yeah,
It's a little bit more like raw, kind of like real almost, isn't it? Like that you don't get the chance to kind of give it that like polish that you would in I guess like post mix for music or like editing for a YouTube video or something like that. I can I definitely get like why some people prefer to watch and like make streams as opposed to YouTube videos.
Yeah.
But no, to be honest, that kind of linked into something I wanted to ask you anyway, because we were speaking before we started recording about you being a musician. Have you found like any kind of overlap, like in with the music and like the creating Yu-Gi-Oh content, even if it's something in terms of like taking maybe like a networking thing that you've encountered in Yu-Gi-Oh, and then taking it over to music, or vice versa, or even something like inspiring like lyrics or like a deck choice or something like that. Like I just like as a musician myself, I always find it curious to see other musicians' points of view.
Yeah, so there is some like crossover in some different ways. The first one that comes to mind is the fact that there are some people who it's I've I've made there's someone who I know from like my locals community who also is a good friend of one of the bands I frequently play shows with. And so it was this thing of like, hey, do you know this person? Yes, why? And so there are moments like that where kind of the Chicago music scene and the Chicago Yu-Gi-Oh scene for me kind of combines, which is really funny. Um, and then in terms of like when I'm playing a deck or when I'm learning it, I like to make a playlist that kind of has the spirit of the deck in it. So, for example, when I was learning how to play, what was it? When I was learning how to play at Ignister, I think
Gang
it
gang.
was Gang Gang. When I was learning to play at Ignister, I hit up Shiggy's on Twitter. I was like, Shiggy's, do you have a Cyberse playlist? Like a thing that's just going to like get you in the mood of Cyberse when you're doing this. And of course, she was like, yeah, I got you. Um,
Yeah.
and then
Of all the people to have like a Cyberse playlist, I feel like Shiggy's would definitely be the one to have something like that.
100%. And yeah, so there's like playlists for there are certain artists or playlists I'll have for like Brenda Despia, for Marincess, for whatever else it might be. Um, Particularly like as people know, I really love Labyrinth, and so I listen to a lot of like Susie and the Banshees while playing Labyrinth. So
Oh,
yeah.
That's actually so interesting because I've never thought of that, like getting like a playlist for specific decks and stuff. But like it makes sense as you're saying it, like yeah, to get you in the mood of playing that deck. Like yeah,
Yeah.
I've legit never thought of that, but that's actually like a really interesting way to look at it and like a way to get you in that headspace.
yeah. I never really thought about that. Like, have you ever like associated like Yu-Gi-Oh with anything like that other than like music or something like that, Fabs? Because I
Yeah,
don't think I have really.
I had it, but funnily enough, so I feel like I mentioned League of Legends at least once every podcast, but I used to do that with League, for example. So it's like, that's why it's interesting that I've never made that parallel to Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's like, even as you're just saying it, even, so like, in my head, I was coming out like, yeah, with the Cybers playlist, I was thinking, oh, I could get some of my like dubstep playlists and stuff, and I feel like that would get me in the mood and all of this kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, kind of like
Yeah.
techno sort of stuff.
Yeah,
So like, how
fully.
did it work with League? Was it like, because I don't know too much about League. Like, Eva, I'm not sure how much you know about it, but like, is it like you have like a champion or something? Is it like a Raid
Yeah.
Shadow Legends kind of thing?
No, I would. It's so hard to describe MOBAs in a clear and concise way. So, but basically, you have the point is that you have a character, and each character has League has a very rich backstory for every single character. So, for example,
Okay.
there's one character who is like a samurai, and so like you might get like music that's like more that kind of inclined. For example, like Eastern kind of windpipes and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Then you've literally got a character in one of his skins where he's a pop star and he's got his own music. Like I'm sure you guys have seen like
Okay.
the KDA thing on YouTube. It's like the animated, yeah. So for example, there's like that with those characters, and so there's like lots of different examples like that in the League, which is really cool. And then there's also quite a lot of, and who was it? JY was talking about this. So look, Eva, I feel like we have to snitch on you to JY as well now. He was saying about doing a Yu-Gi-Oh cipher, getting some Yu-Gi-Oh musicians together, and I feel like, look, this is the next step because
Coming
there
together,
seems to be a lot of talented musicians in the Yu-Gi-Oh space.
Who is this that said that?
JY
So
Sharif.
Joey
yeah,
Sharif? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. He's
I'm down.
he's someone who's like from London. He was a world competitor in was it 2017? Was it Fabs?
I'll be lying if I said I knew.
He's
Yeah.
gonna chew me out for not knowing that, man. But yeah,
Yeah.
shout out JY, great guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I definitely there are definitely quite a few of us where it's like uh people like if you know Skyhawk,
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the name.
Skyhawk is a musician as well, King Scarlet, and so yeah, at some point we'll all
get
and
something kicked off.
Dan yourself as well. We'll just get into a room and we'll do some Yu-Gi-Oh music.
Like
Kings.
legitimately, wouldn't it be so sick? Sorry to interrupt you. Then wouldn't it be
No,
so
no, go
sick
ahead.
if there was like a Yu-Gi-Oh concert? Like again, so like with League at Worlds, they literally did a whole concert. They had Little Nas X perform and stuff.
Mhm.
If, for example, during
Oh,
the YCS there was like a concert, that would be epic. I don't know.
oh my
Maybe it's
God,
just
yeah.
me,
I
but
would. No, no, I would be so down for that. Before I got into like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, I was
yeah.
playing Final Fantasy 14 a lot, and that is, a game just so well known for its
Mm,
music. And
Mm.
I mean, like seeing if I could see those performances live and stuff and go to a fan fest,
that would be
my
awesome.
day would, yes, my year, my life, my journey would be made.
Hey, do you know what? Looking at stuff like what, like Pokemon, and like I know it's a different thing, but like obviously like all the Fortnite concerts, and like you were saying about League, and even like I've seen Magic do stuff with Post Malone. Like
Mm.
it really feels like Konami are missing like
They're missing.
missing a boat,
Look, if
because
they,
there's
yeah,
go on, go on.
I was just gonna say, if they want me to spend £100 on the ticket, that's how you do it. That's
To be
literally how you do it.
fair, because I don't know, I feel like Konami ambassadors, because there's a lot of like famous people who've come out and said they love Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Like, there's, like for example, Juice World, obviously rest in peace, but like there was a video of him talking about how much he liked Yu-Gi-Oh and things like that. I've heard rap musicians reference it a lot as well, in the alternative scene, things like that. Like, but then they get a footballer who just tweeted that he watched Yu-Gi-Oh once. And then they send him over to Lithium, and Lithium's asking him what pot of greed does, and he just hasn't got a clue.
Was that with Antoine Griezmann?
Yes,
Yeah,
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 Antoine
Antoine
Griezmann.
Griezmann. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he was lasted
yeah,
all of about 3 weeks before a
yeah,
very embarrassing picture of him came out, and Konami dropped him.
yep.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, just Konami, like, just if you're listening, just get some, like, do some work,
Yeah.
man.
On a
Oh,
side note, on the Griezmann thing, I was not specifically the Griezmann thing. I'm happy that I feel like this is going to be famous last words, and there have been one or two. But it seems as though at least so far in the Yu-Gi-Oh community, we're not too sloppy. We haven't had too many kind of ridiculous scandals or anything like that. Like most of the creators seem to be kind of on the straight and narrow. I know there's like I can't remember whatever that dude's name is. Mega Capital G did a documentary on one guy that had drama, but by
Oh,
and
G
large,
Hopper.
yeah.
G Hopper, yeah.
Other than
Yeah.
like that, I feel like we're quite clean in the Yu-Gi-Oh community. Like when I used to watch the Call of Duty community back in the day, I felt like there was a drama alert every single. I mean, that's why Keemstar even started the whole drama alert thing. Right, there's like drama all
Oh,
the time.
really?
Like yeah, Keemstar used to be in the COD community. Well, he started out on whatever battles it's called, and then yeah, moved into drama alert when he got kicked off YouTube. But yeah, because there was always drama.
No way.
They were
I
all just
legitimately
really
didn't know
sloppy.
that.
Yeah. So it'll be.
Legitimately
It's
didn't know
nice
that.
that we've been good so far. But as I've
I
said,
So,
think
tomorrow I'm sure there'll be like 5 different drama things posted on Facebook.
I don't know.
yeah. I mean, there's definitely drama and tension
Mm,
at times, but it's rarely on the scale of like, of G Hopper or something like that.
exactly.
There have been some things recently, some things that are, blown out of proportion, and some
Mm,
things which are like, truly awful acts. Like, we don't need to go into them
Yeah, of
necessarily,
course.
but
Yeah.
but yeah,
mm,
but
yeah.
but generally, I mean, on the whole, I have a very positive view of the Yu-Gi-Oh community. Just a lot of the people that I've met and interacted with are just extremely kind, wonderful people. So
I was going to say, because I've noticed like you have like a sort of a relationship with Thrift, right? You both speak very highly of each other. Like, how did that come about? If you don't mind me asking, of course.
yeah, yeah. So um, we started talking about Yu-Gi-Oh a while ago, year and a half or something like that,
Mm.
and we just kind of became friends, would swap ideas, and um, he like I posted something about like some which we'll probably talk about, which is trans stuff, and he just kind of was supportive about it. We kind of became friends through that, and in a lot of situations, he has been supportive of myself and other people in the community. Um, it is it is it can be frustrating sometimes because he he will project a sort of air of like Spartan, like,
Like a
Yeah.
certain persona
I'm,
kind of thing.
yeah, he puts on this sort of persona at times, that can be very frustrating to me, especially as someone who's not really into, the whole like I'm, big strong man thing.
Yeah.
But at his core, he really is a really kind person, someone who, like, if I if I need something, I feel like I can count on him. Um, and yeah, so it's something that I've received a lot of flack for, and something that's very complicated, but it's also a matter of like I I don't want to get like too far down the rabbit hole
No,
with
of
it.
course, yeah.
But generally, it's, his I believe in his inherent goodness, and I also believe that if, like, some people, when they have such a large platform, if you leave them to certain sections of a community that may put them down a pipeline to extremism and such, and you kind of close yourself off from them, they might go down that, and they may create more problems for you down the road. So
Yeah, I think it's because again, I don't know Triff personally, but I always get the impression like he's someone whose heart is he's definitely in the right place, but it's like you said, I feel like there is that bit of a persona to him, but he always struck me as someone like whenever he would get called out for something, like he'd take it on the chin. He wouldn't be like I'm right and you're wrong. He'd say whenever he got criticism, like he'd take it on his chest and kind of work forward and work on being a better person. So I have to give him his flowers for that, man. Like shout out Triff. Also, like, he's a legitimately insane deck builder, but I don't know too much about pendulums. I just kind of like his sprite content.
That's,
And like
that's what I like. And one of the things as well is, like, I was gonna say, like you said, Dan. One of the things that I remember, for example, is like I think he made a comment about Andrew Tate, saying how he basically, it was almost, it seemed like he was in support of Andrew Tate, but then it's like when people called him out, he just immediately made a video and he was like, no, this is what I meant. I'm sorry if it came across like that. And you don't usually see that. Usually it's like deflections and all of this, but you're just like, yeah, that's how it is. So
Yeah.
like, and he's funny. I can't lie.
Yeah.
I find him very funny. Like but I find his videos very funny. Yeah, so he's quite a cool guy.
yeah,
I do think this is something that you'll probably be able to talk to us about a little bit, Eva. I do think that, like, obviously Twitter as a whole kind of has this reputation for being a sort of a dumpster fire. I don't think the Yu-Gi-Oh Twitter, from what I've seen, I've only seen like certain little bits of it. Like, I'm not too far in the rabbit hole, so to speak. But I kind of get the impression that there's toxic elements to it, but overall it does seem very sort of positive, and there's a lot of people who are like looking out for each other. Like, talk to us a little bit about your involvement in like Yu-Gi-Oh Twitter, because again, like, it seems like that's like something that's really prominent for you. Like, are there any sort of like highlights of being like a sort of I don't want to say linchpin because that doesn't feel like the right word, but like a prominent figure, so to speak.
Well, first, I appreciate that. It's I do think on the whole it is a very positive space. I think that, like, as it is, Twitter is not a format it's not a format or a space that was created to be respectful and to be kind and to be, and to be generous with time and patient with other people. But and so sometimes it feels a bit like, trying to push a rock uphill, or it feels a bit
Getting
like
blood out of the
Sisyphus at
stone,
times.
sort of thing.
Yeah. But I it's really important to me that, like, there's critical engagement and discussion between us when we have issues. And this is kind of something I've said, that, like, for people in the Yu-Gi-Oh community, I don't have like the largest platform in the world, but I do have something of a platform on Yu-Gi-Oh Twitter. And with that, like, I I want to hold people accountable to the beliefs and values that we should hold as a community, as well as people holding myself accountable to those too. So when I receive criticism about my views, or criticism about my support of someone or something, I take that to heart. As long as it's honest criticism and not somebody making.
Just being outwardly negative for the sake of outwardly negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
There's a difference between constructive criticism and being a troll, right?
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you find that when, like, people kind of troll you, and they're, not just like burner accounts or something, when they troll you and you actually reply to them being like, I'm sorry you feel that way, but like this is a pretty rude response, and they're kind of like, oh no, I'm sorry. It's
Yeah,
like, yeah, because
you kind
you
of
thought
disarm them, right?
yeah, because people will assume that they're just going to throw something onto the ether and like say a rude sexualized comment about me or something like that, and expect me not to respond or me not to see it. And then when I do and I do respond, they kind of have their tail between their legs because it's like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna let you be rude on here just for the sake of being rude. I'm a human being. You don't know you don't know the extent of who I am. So it wouldn't kill you to engage me respectfully if that's what you want to do in criticizing me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Would you say so? Again, I personally don't use Twitter, so I apologize if I'm using any of the
No,
words.
you're one of the lucky ones.
You really are, bro.
Do you know what's funny? I never got into it, and then by the time Twitter like became a thing, it was just like, oh, I can't be bothered to learn. And it's like, I know it sounds like I'm being an old guy, but I just like, whatever. So like, I only really use YouTube and Facebook. That's it. But on Twitter, would you say that it's a lot of kind of? Do you get a lot of these trolls, and is it people DMing you, or is it people posting on like their feeds or whatever? It's like, or is it just kind of like, yeah? So basically, is it more people basically PMing you and trying to just be a bit of an asshole in your DMs, or is it people actually being trolls actively out on Twitter, like they'll post it for the whole world to see?
Um, it is a combination, I would say, of the two, but
Mm.
it's also quite rare.
Mm.
I think compared to other people who I think have like a platform of similar size to me, I think I get comparatively fewer like really rough comments or
Mm.
uncomfortable DMs, which I appreciate. Like I try not to take that for granted because I know that I have a lot of friends who will get a lot worse in terms of just you know, uh, like
People being weird.
Mm.
inappropriate DMs or just like I know for a lot of other trans content creators and people on Twitter, they'll get people who are harassing them, and I get that I get that a fair bit of the time, but it's like I'm not going to be bothered by somebody who's like I'm not
Yeah.
going to be bothered by a burner account being like you're not you're a man. I'm like
Yeah.
I don't care, dude. Like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like I don't.
I think that's because that's a healthy way to look at it, but because it's something that I mean I'm not sure if we've spoke about this Fabs other than like touching on it on like a podcast very briefly the once like when I started posting videos on Sanctum Squad, like obviously like I'm like a non-binary person, I like to present something that isn't particularly masculine at times, how to get the manicure on specialist day sort of thing like that. But like you'd get comments on videos of just burner accounts, and like I'd have to go through and just delete them because it's just like, what are you doing? Because like it's like I would delete them for the sake of the channel because I don't want like say if there's 5 comments, I don't want one to be like, oh, what's this dickhead doing? But like also like it does get to you, right? But I suppose you have to think like you said, it's it's just some dickhead on a burner, like I'm living my real life sort of thing,
Yeah.
and I like and it is so much easier said than done, man. But like it, but that sounds like I feel like that sounds like I'm trying to take away from like the importance of that thing happening because it isn't something that should happen by any stretch of the imagination. But I think I don't know. It's a bit of a sticky one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to that, and I'm also not trying to downplay someone who like if they do receive that comment, like if they do receive transphobic comments or things like that, that they're affected by that and that
Yeah.
it's painful for them. Not take away from that at all. And for myself earlier on in transition or when I just had less confidence in myself, I would be more fazed by that and I would be more hurt by that. But as I was growing up and as I was transitioning and such, I had people who were closer in life who were less who struggled with understanding it more. And like when I experienced those things hurt at the time. And having people who know you in real life and aren't just like randos on Twitter who are like, I just don't understand you and I don't get this, that is something that like will affect me more than
Yeah,
that. And so at
it's
this
very
point,
different. It's very different. Like
right.
it's something that I've experienced as well. Like I imagine it's probably not to a similar sort of scale, but I do completely understand where you're coming from.
If you don't
Go on.
mind me asking, Eva, what age did you transition at?
I started like medical transition hormone replacement therapy at 25, so about 3 years, almost 3 years ago.
And do you think being at the age you were, so once you when so okay, firstly, when you started transitioning, had you already been getting hate because you're kind of public about, or was it at some point during or after that you started getting potentially hate or trolly comments?
Yeah, so by the time I started like by the time I started getting into like Yu-Gi-Oh and everything, I was already well into transition. I think I had been um it'd
Okay.
been like a year and a half or something. So most of like I guess Yu-Gi-Oh community has only known me
Yeah.
as yeah, as myself,
Yeah,
because I just wasn't really in it before then. Um and a lot of it is and I kind of have this in my work as well. It's, as I've talked about, I'm a public school teacher as well. And it's one thing for people to say something to me or to say a hateful or rude comment to me.
Mm.
I'm an adult. I've experienced a lot of this, and it's most of the time water off the duck's back for me at this point. But if you're saying that to one of my students who is just, who isn't sure about themselves yet, who's still undergoing kind of figuring themselves out, and you do something that tries to, tear them down, those structures of support and those walls just aren't really up for them yet. And that can be a lot more detrimental to them.
Mm.
And that's for a lot of people kind of earlier in transition or earlier in kind of their journey with gender or sexuality. And that's the kind of thing that I want to prevent in the community. I want to make sure that people feel supported, that they can go to locals and not be harassed, that they can go to a YCS and not have someone, misgendering them across the table on
Mm.
purpose, you know. So yeah, I just want everyone to be kind to each other.
Yeah, it'd be nice. I say it all the time. I can't lie. Some people need a slap, man. Some people. That's my perspective on a lot of this. Like, look, if people got slapped up a lot more when they were younger, they wouldn't have such bad behavior sometimes. But yeah, that's my
I,
perspective.
I think a lot of it as well. It depends on how you handle it, right? Because like
Mm.
I've had people who could like come straight to my face and just been like, "I don't understand, what you're trying to be, like it's something that I'm aiming to be or whatever," or like so I've seen it happen to other trans people. And it's just like, okay, cool, like you're a dickhead. I'm not going to bother with you. But then if you get someone who's like, okay, it might not be something that I fully understand or like fully get, but you know, I want to be supportive, and like if there's anything I can do, let me know. That's a completely different story, isn't it? Like, because I feel like there's a big stigma with like if you don't understand something, you're gonna get cancelled or something, right? Like if you say the wrong thing, and it's like 90% of the people who I've talked to about this, like be it something like gender related, sexuality related, race related, anything, like if you ask a question with no hatred in your heart and just say like I just want to be sure, how are they going to be annoyed at you, right? Like I wouldn't be annoyed if someone asking me how I wanted to be addressed, like if they asked it in a civilized manner. If someone was like said something nasty, then that's a different story. But like manners don't cost a penny, man. Like you're right, Fabs.
And I think
You really are right.
we've both said it a lot of times as well, which is that just mind your own business. Like it's not
Trust me.
compulsory to have an opinion on everything. It's not compulsory to get involved in everyone's life. Like
Yeah.
I can count on one hand the amount. Like maybe this makes me selfish, but I can count on one hand the amount of times in like the last year that I've like genuinely thought that about someone's life and their decisions, and it's like. And the person that I think of is in my family, so I feel like I'm okay. I'm allowed to have an opinion on their life. But like most people, it's just like it's none of my business. I don't care. Like I don't.
Right.
Sometimes people feel so compelled to have an opinion and share it, and it's just like you don't have to. You can keep it to yourself.
You really don't. Like, just keep it moving in it. Like, especially in the Yu-Gi-Oh, you're there to play a card game. Like, you're not there to have a debate with some Ben Shapiro wannabe. You're there to normal summon a whatever, not a barrier statue anymore.
Normal summon Rabina.
Like, yeah.
But speaking on that, let's move into a bit of Yu-Gi-Oh talk. So we'll start with you, Eva, because I feel like everyone got like an hour of me and Dan's opinions over the last 2 days in our podcast on the ban list. But what are your opinions on the most recent ban list and kind of what the new format's going to be like?
Well, I think that if people are still trying out tier right now, I think they're coping.
Quickly on that, by the way, Joshua Schmidt already has released a video. Not Joshua Schmidt, sorry, Jesse Cotton has released a video.
If anyone was going to do it, it was going to be Jesse.
I watched Jesse's video, and I'm like, he's got a lot more clout and know-how about this game than I do, but I think it's a little bit of coping on this. But I think like tier as an engine was still, there really isn't anything it can be but an engine now because it's been hit to shit. But it's, those cards are still wild. You still have three Parallel Rhino, a Terraforming. The fact that you have 3 Rhino doesn't really matter because the fewer tier names you have, the worse Rhino is, essentially. But I still think that Parallel Rhino is the wildest in-archetype field spell that's ever been printed, really. It's so ridiculously powerful. I was upset about the shufflers and the other Shizu cards because for this format I've been playing Verna Selfa Shizu Naturia. So Mudora for them is just like, it's just, it's the shuffler that we put in the graveyard. It's the thing that we pitch off Sharon.
Helps you recur your engine, right?
What's that?
Helps you recur your engine, right? Sort of thing.
But for Naturia, that's our play starter. Like Mudora is a huge part of Mudora was a huge play starter for the deck. So it does hurt. The Naturia engine isn't necessarily dead, but it does have to evolve and go into a different variant now, just because the Ishizu stuff is so inconsistent now. But overall, some of the other hits, like the barrier statue, had been a problem for the past year. It needed to go. It was just annoying because sometimes you just don't have an out to it.
It's very jarring. It's very jarring when your only out is infinite impermanence, and they summon the second one after you've normal summoned.
God, when they started, I remember the first time I was at a tournament and someone dropped the second barrier statue on me because that was like it was very rarely seen that someone was on 2 barrier statue. But once we started playing the Ishizu cards, then they were like 2 of them things. And the first time someone summoned that second one on me, I was like, you are joking me. You
can't be serious right now, right?
Yeah. So upset.
So ridiculous. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy Barrier Statue. I'm happy, but I feel like I'm a person who likes branded. And now that Barrier Statue's gone, I feel like that matchup is so free. It was just Barrier Statue that's the problem because it was like, and then like they have Barrier Statue and then you normal summon, they're like, oh, my turn to normal summon. Normal, not so.
I'm trying to think of some of the other
Sprite Elf, I guess, is something worth talking about.
Oh, yeah. That was a weird one. I think Elf was I don't think Elf necessarily needed to be hit. It is it was a bannable card. I completely agree with that. But I guess if you wanted to hit Sprite, that was the correct move. And you kind of had to if tier was going to be hit so much. Because I think Sprite with Elf and Sprind still having access to Toad in this format would have been pretty wild without tier to check it. Yeah, with the Gishkis too, because mean, with Elf and Coral Anemone, you're looping Abyss like 3 times in a turn,
Yeah,
which is kind of wild.
yeah. It's actually going to be interesting to see at Leon, how, because this is going to be the only tournament where they have the new support and they still have their old cards. So it's going to be interesting to see any kind of what the craziness would have been like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms, oh, sorry.
No,
Yeah.
go on.
I was just gonna say the scythe ban. That was good. It wasn't a problem right now, but it would have been in the
Just
future.
just nice one.
Yeah, just good. And the unlimits, I think Lithosygem is a very wild unlimit that could be very toxic very quickly, but I also think it's kind of based, so whatever.
The more I think about it, the more I hate the Lithosygem like unlimit, because every like other game I've loaded up on Edo Pro since the ban list, I've been Lithosygemed, and I'm just like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Yeah, I mean, I was playing a bit of Dino, and it's like you gotta, if you have a hand where it's Lithosygem and like a baby and a petite pteranodon, like,
gosh, that's insane. Yeah.
GG's.
I suppose like the only sort of it's not super searchable, right? Like there's just like the diagram.
Diagram, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean,
So
I don't know if that
what
makes
type
it
is
better or worse. It's a worm.
Oh, it's a worm. So yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that makes me feel better or worse, knowing that I've just been sacked by something that's been hard drawn. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating.
Yeah.
So you mentioned obviously that you're a big fan of like the Naturia stuff, Eva. What are you looking to play going forward then? Do you think you'll experiment with Naturia with the Runics, or do you think you'll just pick up, like you mentioned, Dinos, or something completely different entirely? Or is it something you've not even thought about yet?
So, oh yeah, I've been testing, but
Been labbing.
I think as I was playing like the Vernus Elves and the Ishizu cards with Naturia, yeah, it definitely needs to evolve now, just because that version of the deck is just so much less consistent now, with only one Nudora, one Kalbeck, one Agito, and one Keldo. So perhaps the runic stuff, but it feels a bit, it doesn't quite feel right. The runic build of it. So in the format from Tama to Mama, which is just funny. From Tama to Mama, I was playing Labyrinth. So I brought Labyrinth to 2 ICSs, and I played it as my main competitive deck for about 3 months. And that's probably going to be what I go back to. I love that deck. It is something that it's something that I'm very comfortable with, and I love the interactions. And they get support in this new set, being the Big Welcome Labyrinth, which is an amazing card for the deck, and also the new Normal Trap Waybridge, which is an amazing board breaker. So,
yeah. I've been trying to pick up a copy of that since pre-release, and no one seems to want to sell me some. So if you're listening, sell me a Waybridges. But no, I think Labyrinth is a strong pick, to be honest, because we were talking about this in the tier list, like that we recorded like 2 days before the fucking ban list happened. So it's a tier list for a format that doesn't exist. Yeah. But anyway, we were saying about how Labyrinth is probably the strongest trap deck moving forward, just because it's the fact it doesn't solely rely on the traps, right? Because like I'm not sure if Eldritch is a deck you've played either, or like if you've ever played like Altergeist or something like that. I know Fabs you have, obviously. Like, I feel like with Labyrinth, when it gets hit with a lightning storm, like it sucks, but like your monsters are like recurable enough anyway, and they have the protection with the lovely lady, is it?
Yeah.
But whereas in like something like Altergeist or like Eldritch, if they declared battle phase, you were just fucked, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like a couple of things with it where it's like they don't have, as opposed to some trap decks where it's like Dynamorphia has Sonic, so they can stop an evenly matched or a lightning storm. Evil Eye has Retribution, so they can negate a spell or trap card as well. With Labyrinth, you don't have, like, you have Solemn Judgment. That's it's your typical trap deck where it's like, oh, you draw Judgment, but Labyrinth also has some interesting plays with it, where like something I'll commonly do is that I will part of what makes Labyrinth powerful is that they have the card Labyrinth Coup Clock, which allows you to activate a normal trap the turn it's set if you control a Labyrinth monster. So what I'll usually do in like game 3 or something is I'll set a bunch of back row, and I'll have a way to get to Coup Clock and a way to use Lady Labyrinth to set a trap from deck. And then if they try to go to battle phase, at the start of battle, I start going off with my plays. I use Lady Labyrinth to set Eradicator, and then I Coup Clock to send to the graveyard, and then Eradicator, Tribute Lady, call Trap, and just rip that evenly matched out of their hand.
Setting a virus, that's kind of big, you know. Yep. That's hard. I like that. Yeah. That's big.
You can do that, or there was one time where I was playing against a tier player, and they had kind of bricked, and I guess they had drawn an evenly matched. So I had set up my board, and they had 6 cards in hand. They went to go to battle phase, and at the start of battle phase, I used Archfiend's Ghastly Glitch to pop my own Ariana on the field. Mm-hmm. And then I used the effect of Lovely Labyrinth because a monster left the field by a normal trap effect, even my own, to randomly snipe a card out of my opponent's hand, and out of the 1 in 6 chance, I hit the evenly. So sometimes you just have to go for the angle shot. Like,
does it snipe, like send it to grave? Because like doing that on a tier player, that's
but yeah,
that's a wild move.
It was one of those
high risk, high reward,
like, it was like if I get even lead here, I will just lose. So my only option here is to pop my own monster and hopefully, with a 1 in 16 chance, rip the evenly matched out of hand. And
I mean, and even if you hit a tier name there and they activate it, they can't activate it evenly now anyway. So you're in a good position either way. So,
that's almost like a fucking anime moment. Like I have to hit this one card. Like that's so sick. That's a dope story. We did speak about events a little bit. Obviously, I'm conscious in terms of like time and things like that. But this is something I did want to touch on because I do feel like it's an important thing. And Eva, I'm sure you've been asked this a million times. So if you have, I'm sorry in advance. As a woman at a Yu-Gi-Oh event, be it locals or a YCS, like, what are things that you wish that other players would not do or like would do more? Because I feel like there's a lot of people who talk the talk about like, oh yeah, you know, we need to be sound to women like when they're there, but then it comes to the locals and they're like, oh yeah, she's a woman, she's a boy, or they're like, you know, doing weird sus stuff or whatever. Like I don't know. So
yeah, so generally, I haven't had too many interactions in person that have been negative or have been like specifically because I'm a woman or because I'm trans. But there are some times where I've had this where like people can be kind of patronizing towards you, and they're like, oh, look at her, she's like, oh, you got beat by a girl and stuff like that. And it's like I read cards, I'm good at this game, like just like you don't need to act like it's this big shock.
It's not a novelty, right? Like it's not a novelty because you don't get less points like for your loss because you got beat by a girl. You still lost in it. Hold the L. Like
it's just like, oh yeah, and there's never been like a girl who's been good at Yu-Gi-Oh before. Like Elise Davis, Jackie Zarkon, like you know, there's the thing is that like, and I had this interaction with someone a couple of weeks ago where I was playing on EDO Pro against someone, which I know, first mistake, but I was playing against them, and I had mentioned that I got a list for a branded deck from a friend who was a woman, and the person said, well, that was your first mistake, taking advice from a woman on Yu-Gi-Oh! And I was like,
what a top redditor.
I was like, excuse me, and you know, I actually ended up having a conversation with this guy and being like, okay, why do you believe that women aren't good at Yu-Gi-Oh? And he was like, well, they don't get any of like the wins at YCSs. And I was like, one, there's plenty of women who are top YCSs, and two, like, you have to also think about how this has happened. I was like, why do you think more women don't play Yu-Gi-Oh? And he was like, well, I guess because Yu-Gi-Oh is a shonen and it's geared more towards men. I was like, okay, we're getting somewhere. Like, it's, you know,
that
it's like,
specifically is a point. Like, just before you go on, I think there's a lot of good female representation in Yu-Gi-Oh characters. Like, there are some who are a little bit cringy, maybe, but you've got some strong roles. Like, take Mai, for example, in the first one. She was like, before we found out she was cheating with perfume, she was like heralded as this big bad duelist. You know, don't take shit from anyone. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, but I don't think it's necessarily like the anime doesn't always like it's doesn't kind of project that where it's like, oh, this is for boys necessarily.
Yeah.
But that is like it was a conscious decision as it was in the 1980s with the video game industry. It was a conscious decision by Konami to market this game to, in the early 2000s to a demographic of boys who were slightly older than those who would like Pokemon. That's real shit. And because of that, we have a lot more men who play the game, for sure. But just because there's more men who play the game, more men who get tops, etc., it doesn't mean that like women are inherently bad at this game or something. It's that there's less of us because of socialization. There have been less women who have played this game, less women who have been introduced to it. And so, I think if it wasn't this matter of socialization, I think we would see similar representation of men and women, in these events because there's no inherent thing that makes men better at Yu-Gi-Oh than women. So
no, and I'd even say as well, one of the funny things I always find with people with takes like, oh, your first mistake is taking advice from women, it's always average or bad players that say nonsense like that. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if that guy has never topped an event in his life and he's talking. So it's like I don't even know what the heck you're on about, bro. Like, just take it. Doesn't matter if they're a girl or a guy. Like, I think we had this discussion before on the show where we were saying like, when I'm in a game, my opponent is not a girl, they're not a guy. They're just a victim. That's my only perspective of them. You're my enemy, you're my adversary. That's the only thing you have. Then after the game, we can go into the like, what's your first name and these kind of things. But before that,
the semantics. Yeah,
it's like there's no such thing as girl or guy. There's just my opponent, and I'm winning. Like,
So I guess as a long-winded response to the question, like there's been some times where I've been misgendered or things like that at an event, or there was one funny time where I was playing against someone who wasn't sure how to refer to me and just said, and they're like, and my opponent, and just like continued to talk.
I've had that. It's funny,
which is very funny. But yeah, I mean, in this game, my biggest thing is that I want to have more women. I want to have more queer people who are playing this game and who are, succeeding at it because I think that like one, those are my people. That's my community. I want to see them thrive, but also I want to see this game thrive. And the more people that we have thinking and labbing and working on decks together and working in cooperation, the best we can find the best way to build a deck, the best way to run a strategy, the best combo lines. And I see Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot of times as this great scientific project. We're all, testing our hypotheses. We're all working together on this sort of goal. And sometimes we strike gold. We make for example, Danger Tier was a deck that was basically completely unexplored in the OCG, except for like a few random tops. But in the TCG for a while before Darkwing Blast and such, it was the dominant tier build. I might have thought that Lunalight tier was better, but that's just me. But that was something that came together because of collaboration from some of the best minds in Yu-Gi-Oh! And if we can have more people who are able to present their knowledge, who are able to show their creativity, and are able to have some of the most wild-ass ideas for decks and for strategies, the better this game gets.
100%, I agree.
That's such a great takeaway. Like, I really like that summarization. That was so cool.
And I like it. I feel like we're not gonna try and cap that. So we're gonna go into our last section, which is "Am I the Arsehole?"
So, Eva, I'm not sure if this is something that I actually spoke to you about. So, basically, we have this little section on the podcast where Fabs will go into a r/am I the asshole, where people post all their scenarios and they like to get people's opinions on the internet, and he cherry picks some of the best ones for our guests.
Yeah.
So
this one is. I have a feeling we probably will all agree on this, but I just thought it would be. I couldn't miss up doing this one. So
sure.
The title is, "Am I the arsehole for telling my wife's friend she's too old and ugly after she repeatedly asked my 19-year-old son to take off his shirt?" So, right.
What?
There's a lot to unpack there.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
My family had a small get-together at my house. One of my wife's friends was over. She's unmarried and I think 45 to 47. We're not too close as she lives far away. She was at our house and started complimenting my 19-year-old son. It starts off innocent, but as time goes on, it gets more and more over the line. When we were out on my deck, she starts telling my son to take his shirt off, saying, "What's the point of going to the gym if no one will see it?" My son is visibly uncomfortable and tries to shut her down. She repeatedly is asking and is getting more aggressive with it. I interject and I'm like, "Hey, Kathy, I think you're a bit too old and ugly for my son." This got her upset really quickly, and she goes to the bathroom and starts crying. My wife comforts her and she leaves later. At the end, my wife is super angry with me for saying that I should have said, "Hey, Kathy, looks like you had too much to drink," or something else. So his wife is saying he should have said that instead. I told my wife that Kathy works a corporate job and she should have known better, and our son was uncomfortable. I told my wife flat out that if I was to invite a guy friend, basically he said if sexes were reversed, it wouldn't have been okay. And then he finishes off by saying he thinks he was fair. If she had just said it once and I said what I think, then maybe I'd be an asshole. But it's because she kept repeating, that's why I said it. And I wanted her to get the message that, yes, I'm upset. That's why I include the ugly part. Am I the asshole?
But before we get into this, Ava, you're an American. I just want to clear this up. The legal age, is it 18 or 21 in America a physical act of love? It's 18. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Because I was going to say, because if it's 21, then you might be an arsehole, but she's something completely different.
I think it's like 21 for alcohol, right? Everything else 18 is just alcohol, right? That's 20. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, what are we thinking then? What are we thinking? Because this is a bit of a.
He's such an arsehole. He should have just let this old lady flirt with his son. I don't know why he didn't.
Okay. So him like interjecting and keeping his son was uncomfortable. So his son was uncomfortable. So he wanted to like interject there. I think that's fine. I think he could have said it. I agree with the wife that he could have said that he could have not said that she was old and ugly. Like
so juvenile, right?
Yeah, like he could have just said like you said, could have like had less to drink, or he could have said like or just like, hey, you could have said, hey, he's not
chill
interested.
out.
Chill,
Yeah.
Yeah, old and ugly. That's pretty rough.
It's strong.
That is savage. You know what? I don't think he's that much of an arsehole. I think he's definitely not said that in the right way.
Yeah.
But if I had a kid and there was someone who was like, nearly 30 years their senior coming onto them and they looked uncomfortable, I'd probably tell them to fuck up as well. Like, I guess I feel like I would anyway. I don't think maybe he is a bit of an arsehole, but I think his heart's in the right place for sure.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to say, before I say, I'm just wondering, am I going to get my family cancelled? This is mad. But, okay. So, one of the things, I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I think it's a little bit of a cultural thing, but when I was younger, one of the things that a lot of my aunties would do is they would be like, "Oh, my boyfriend, my husband." They would like, and this is when I'm like between the ages of like 9 to like 15. They'd be like, "Oh, my boyfriend, he's looking good," and all this, and it's like, it's meant to be like a term of endearment, but I remember at that age, it would make me feel so uncomfortable. And the general thought in my head is, "You're gross. Like, leave me alone." Like they'll be like, "Yeah, my boyfriend, my husband." I'm just like, I'm just like, in my culture, it's kind of like there's a level of respect you have to give to your elders and stuff. And I get as well, like they're not doing it in a weird pedo
in a weird way, innit?
Yeah, but it still made me feel uncomfortable, and I feel like someone standing up for me then would have just helped a lot.
Like, yeah, I was just uncomfortable with it. I didn't like it. I can confidently say that as my aunties were calling me my boyfriend and my husband, I'd just be looking at them like, I'm not your husband, I'm not your boyfriend. I don't want you.
Please stop.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think he's an asshole. By the way, guys, if anyone in the comments is saying now cancel Fabs and all these things, no, I don't actually think that we should be pimping our children. That's yeah, I'm not sure that. but yeah, I think
someone's just gonna clip this out and just be like, "Fab says we should be pipping our children."
This would be a great short, by the way. The shorts algorithm is popping, guys. If you have a problem with me, look, these are the keys. This is how you can get me off the internet. But yeah, I think he didn't say it in the best way, which is true. I think probably the way I would have done it is just I would have literally gone to him and be like, "Cut it out. It's not cool."
Yeah, just chilling it.
But it's also you've had 47 years to learn how to behave in public. At a certain point, I can't be too nice. Like, yeah, you should just change.
You kind of got to know when it's time to go home, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not surprised that we all agree on this. I thought we were probably all gonna agree on it. But yeah,
you know what? I will say, if the 19-year-old wasn't uncomfortable, I would have just let him crack on.
Let her cook. Sure.
Yeah, no, but like, if he was being reciprocative, like, I would have been like, a bit weird, but like, both legally consenting. It's weird, but whatever.
You bring a fair point, and I would say that yes, if
wait, she's not related, right?
And that's no, it's his friend, and it's like you're right. Cool. He is of the above the age of consent, so it's not like it's.
Don't get me wrong, it's fucking weird.
It's a bit strong, but I understand that perspective. I think I'd still be like, no, like let him go and collect some young hot spice. He's in that age. Why should he come and collect your old dusty ass? Like, but
that's it, dusty.
Yeah, but. In any case, but guys, that was the end of episode 22, 23. We're somewhere in the 20s, guys.
Something like
of the Yu-Gi-Oh show. It's going really well. So yeah, thank you so much, Eva, for coming on. This has been a really, really awesome episode, and fingers crossed we can have you back again because I feel like we barely scratched the surface of our discussion. But have you got any shout outs or anything that you wanna any last thoughts that you wanna leave us with?
First, thank you so much for having me. This has been so fun and it's been a delight. I would love to be back on whenever you. In terms of shout outs, shout out, I guess off the top of my head, shout out Golden Nova, who makes lore videos on YouTube. Go check him out. Shout out Shiggy's, who we mentioned earlier, who does amazing streams and is so funny and wonderful. Shout out Scarlon, who makes amazing branded stuff on YouTube, and there's a million other ones like could potentially shout out, but I'll just try to keep it somewhat short for now.
As well, before we go, make sure you check out Eva's band August Hotel. They just dropped a single, "Summer Will Wait." It's been in pretty heavy rotation with myself recently, so yeah, check it out.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and obviously check out us as well, like and subscribe and all that good stuff.
Sub to Sanctum Squad, sub to Fab, sub to Eva, like guys. Look, we need you guys. We need you. That's why we're here. Yeah, so fingers crossed. All of us are going to be at 1 million subs by tomorrow. I know it's happened. Yeah, we got it. All right, thank you guys. This has been another episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh Show. We'll talk to you all soon. Peace.